This is Frank DiMora with the End Times Research Ministry, and today is September the 16th of 2016. For those of you who came to my website yesterday, you saw that I made a video called Heading Toward No Food. And in that video, I mentioned a couple scriptures. And of course, you're seeing those scriptures right here. Matthew chapter 24, verse 7, and Revelation chapter 6, verse 8. In these verses, we see the Lord warning about starvation and hunger. Not only that, but there are other prophecies incorporated within the context of the scriptures that I just gave to you. For example, in the last days, we would see kingdom against kingdom and nation against nation. And so as I break this down for you, kingdom against kingdom would mean civil war. And we see examples of that in many places around the world. For example, in Syria, where Syrians are fighting against Syrians. And I'm going to turn my attention now to Venezuela, because we're seeing the signs and the earmarks of a revolution going to take place in Venezuela. And I'll explain why. And it is connected with the lack of food and people starving in Venezuela. Now, in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a picture of a truck with people handing out some product from the truck. I'm going to get back to that. But first, I want to go over to an article that came out 2 days ago so I can connect the dots for you in relation to Venezuela. And that article is entitled, Venezuela's Death Spiral. A dozen eggs cost $150 as hyperinflation horrors hit socialist utopia. This article came out from the Zero Hedge. It says the question of whether socialism can be an effective economic system was famously raised when Margaret Thatcher said of the British Labour Party, "I think they've made the biggest financial mess that any government's ever made in this country for a very long time." And socialist governments traditionally do make a financial mess. They always run out of other people's money. It's quite a characteristic of them. They then start to nationalize everything. Goes on to say, there are dire reports of people waiting in supermarket lines all day, only to discover that expected food deliveries never arrive and the shelves are empty. And of course, they're talking about currently what's going on in Venezuela. There are horrific tales of desperate people slaughtering zoo animals to provide their only meal of the day. Even the household pets are targeted as a much-needed source for food. President Maduro is doubling down on the proven failed policies and philosophies of the Brazilian socialism while diverting attention away from the crisis, pointing fingers at so-called enemies of Venezuela, such as the United States, Saudi Arabia, and others. Get this, a dozen eggs was last reported to cost $150, and the International Monetary Fund predicts that inflation in Venezuela will hit 720% this year. What you're looking at in Venezuela is a glimpse of what the world is going to look like during the tribulation period that Jesus Christ warns us about. Because Venezuela is in the heart. They're in the mix of a failing government, and it's causing nothing but chaos for all the people who live there. Even the governmental people, for example, the army, because eventually what's going to happen when there's no more food and people cannot live anymore, there's going to be killings, riots like we haven't seen in Venezuela yet. And of course, what we'll see is a fruition of what Jesus talked about, kingdom rising against kingdom. And there are many reasons why kingdoms will rise against themselves, and as you can see from this article, lack of food and starvation would definitely set off war between Venezuelans and the government. So what I want to do in preparing you for what's to come, especially if you don't know Jesus Christ, because our hope is in Jesus Christ. That's why he gave us all these signs. I want to show you, as I said, I was going to come back to this video. I want to play this video to show you just a little glimpse of what's taking place in Venezuela as people try to live their lives daily in an unlivable government.
This truck carrying corn flour and pasta never made it to the grocery store. Looting in Venezuela is on the rise. That's made being a food delivery truck driver one of the worst jobs to have. Events like the ransacking of this truck are William Alajuela's worst nightmare.
You have to take more and more precautions. For example, you can't go to dangerous places. You have to go home earlier, and there are certain clients to whom you simply can't deliver anymore.
But William often has to drive through dangerous neighborhoods, like Betare in western Caracas, Venezuela's capital. He says he's already been kidnapped twice and can't even remember how many times he's been robbed.
Before, you ran the risk of common criminals wanting to steal your truck, but now you have to worry about the National Guard who want to extort you, or looters who want to take your load.
And it's only going to get worse. Scenes like this one have become the new normal. In June alone, there were on average 5 lootings or attempts at looting across the country every day. But that figure could be higher. This event we filmed was never reported.
People are sacking what they can, and they ransack a truck because they believe it has food and they want to satisfy their hunger. But they also feel they're exercising justice, because they feel that even if they have money, their salaries are no longer enough to buy food.
For the people waiting under the scorching sun in this queue, there is also the sense that things will never go back to how they were.
It's only getting worse. We are here because our cupboards are empty. We have been waiting here since 5 in the morning for just 2 small packages of flour, and then wait 8 days to be able to buy them again. Can you imagine how we feel?
The people in this crowd say, hungry and above all, angry. Virginia Lopez, Al Jazeera, Caracas.
Now, anyone who thinks that this problem is isolated in Venezuela alone is kidding themselves. For example, ABC News came out with an article not long ago with the headline, "When will food prices stop rising? No time soon, experts say." And I would advise you to go read that article because it talks about what happened in the 70s. And we are, again, seeing something similar to what happened in the 70s. But as you can see from this article, it says this spike is different. And it goes on to talk about the reasons why the food prices in the United States are rising. Now keep in mind, if Jesus warned us that people would have to work all day long in the fields for one small meal that would only feed one person, it just gives you a glimpse of where the world is going to be going. And again, the fruition of this sign will take place during the tribulation. But right now, you're seeing the birth pain signs that Jesus Christ warned us about in the Gospels. Now, Venezuela, for example, as you saw, is paying $150 for eggs. Well, here in the United States, they're not paying that much, but there's been a steady increase in food, and eggs have been incorporated in that steady increase. Take a look at what it says. Egg prices have shot up more than 30%, dairy prices have jumped 12%, and the price of baked goods has risen 9%. Now, if you go back and do research from my previous posts over the past 8 years, you will find a plethora of reports where I state every year that the food prices are going to increase. And that's exactly what's happened, because we are definitely in the midst of those birth pangs, and things are ratcheting up, moving, accelerating to the tribulation period. As I said at the beginning of my video, there are many reasons why the food is disappearing and the prices are going through the roof, skyrocketing prices. And as I mentioned yesterday, the bees are dying off in mass numbers around the world. The pollinators are dying off. So we're seeing all these strange events taking place all at the same time that Jesus warned we would see all these things, all in one generation. Now, if you're the type of person that hasn't read or seen the signs that Jesus warned about, I'd like to ask you to please just take a little bit of time, go over to my website and download my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, today for free, and read the detailed information that I have given to you that will show you without a shadow of a doubt the things that Jesus Christ warned about in the last days are taking place right now. And I'm praying that as you begin reading the last Chronicles of Planet Earth and you finally see that God shows you that His Word is truth, that you will turn your attention to God's Word, the Bible. Study the Word and get ready for the second coming of Jesus Christ. This is Frank DiMora with the End Times Research Ministry.